Senator Cruz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Comey, welcome. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your testimony. I have to say I found your answer to Senator Kennedy a few minutes ago puzzling, in that you described the reason why the case was closed against Ms. Abedin as that you could not determine she was aware her conduct was unlawful. And the reason that answer is puzzling is you're a very accomplished lawyer, and as you're well aware, every first-year law student learns in criminal law that ignorance of the law is no excuse, and that mens rea does not require knowledge that conduct is unlawful. And in fact, the governing statutes, 18 U.S.C. 793F and 18 U.S.C. 798A, have no requirement of a knowledge of unlawful. 798A provides whoever knowingly and willfully communicates, furnishes, transmits, or otherwise makes available to an unauthorized person classified information shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Under the terms of that statute, the fact pattern you described in this hearing seems to fit that statute directly, in that, if I understand you correctly, you said Ms. Abedin forwarded hundreds or thousands of classified emails to her husband on a non-government, non-classified computer. How does that conduct not directly violate that statute?
First, Senator, if I said that I misspoke. She forwarded hundreds and thousands of emails, some of which contain classified information. For generations, I think is a fair way to say it, the Department of Justice has understood that statute to require, in practice, and I believe they think in law, to require a general sense of criminal intent. That is, not a specific intent, but a general criminal intent, a sense, a knowledge that what you're doing is unlawful, not violating a particular statute, but some general criminal mens rea. I can't find a case that's been brought in the last 50 years based on negligence, without some showing or indicia of intent.
You and I have both worked in a number of jobs that require dealing with classified information. And on its face, anyone dealing with classified information should know that conduct is impermissible. Let me ask you, how would you handle an FBI agent who forwarded thousands of classified emails to his or her spouse on a non-government computer?
Well, there'd be significant administrative discipline. I'm highly confident they wouldn't be prosecuted. I'm also highly confident there would be discipline.
All right, let's shift to another topic. In the previous Congress, I chaired a hearing on the willful blindness of the Obama administration to radical Islamic terrorism. We heard testimony from a whistleblower at the Department of Homeland Security that described a purge DHS had undergone of editing or deleting over 800 records at DHS to remove references to radical Islam, to the Muslim Brotherhood. And the purge, indeed, was the word used by the White House that directed DHS to conduct that purge. We obviously have a new administration now, a new White House, a new Attorney General. Has the approach of the FBI to radical Islamic terrorism changed in any respect with the new administration?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Let me ask you about one specific terror attack, which is on May 15th. In May of 2015, the terrorist attack in Garland, Texas, where two terrorists opened fire on a peaceful gathering. And thankfully, no innocent people were killed, thanks to the heroic action of Garland police officer Greg Stevens, who fatally shot the two terrorists. But a security officer was shot in the leg, and it could have been much, much worse. At the time of the incident, you stated publicly that the FBI did not know that the terrorists were on their way to the event, or that they planned on attacking the event. Recently, there have been media reports suggesting otherwise. specifically media reports that have stated that an undercover FBI agent was in close communication with the two terrorists in the weeks leading up to the attack, explicitly discussed plans for the attack, and was in a car directly behind the two terrorists outside the event and took photos of the terrorists moments before the attack, but then left the scene when the shooting began, and that agent was detained by the Garland police. Are those media reports correct?
No. I stand by what I said originally. I can't go into the details of it here because they're classified, but I think a fair thing to say is the media reports are highly misleading. And in a classified setting, I could explain to you how.
Okay. I would appreciate you or your designee sharing those in a classified setting so that I can learn more of what occurred. This committee has had substantial focus also on the practice of the previous IRS of targeting citizens and citizen groups based on their political speech, political views, and perceived political opposition to President Obama. And the previous Department of Justice, both Attorneys General Holder and Lynch, in my view, stonewalled that investigation. Is the FBI currently investigating the FBI's, rather the IRS's unlawful targeting of citizens for exercising political speech?
I think you're referring to the investigation focusing on particularly groups allegedly associated with the Tea Party.
Yes.
We completed that investigation and the department declined prosecution. We worked very hard on it, put a lot of people on it, couldn't make what we thought was a case, and to my knowledge, it has not been reopened.
So did the FBI recommend prosecution? You said you couldn't make the case.
No, we couldn't prove, again, the challenge of intent, we couldn't prove that anybody was targeting these folks because they were conservatives or associated with the Tea Party. We worked very hard to see if we could make that case. We couldn't get there.
Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Comey, for being here, and thank you to you and the men and women who work with you at the FBI for their extraordinary service to our country, much of it unappreciated, as you remarked so powerfully in your opening statement. You have confirmed, I believe, that the FBI is investigating potential ties between Trump associates and the Russian interference in the 2016 campaign, correct?
Yes.
And you have not, to my knowledge, ruled out anyone in the Trump campaign as potentially a target of that criminal investigation, correct?
Well, I haven't said anything publicly about who we've opened investigations on. I've briefed the chair and ranking on who those people are, and so I can't go beyond that in this setting.
Have you ruled out anyone in the campaign that you can disclose?
I don't feel comfortable answering that, Senator, because I think it puts me on a slope to talking about who we're investigating. And
have you ruled out the President of the United States?
I don't want people to overinterpret this answer. I'm not going to comment on anyone in particular because that puts me down a slope of, because if I say no to that, then I have to answer succeeding questions. So what we've done is brief the chair and ranking on who the U.S. persons are that we've opened investigations on, and that's as far as we're going to go at this point.
But as a former prosecutor, you know that when there's an investigation into several potentially culpable individuals, the evidence from those individuals and the investigation can lead to others, correct?
Correct. We're always open-minded about, and we follow the evidence wherever it takes us.
So potentially the President of the United States could be a target of your ongoing investigation into the Trump campaign's involvement with Russian interference in our election, correct?
I just worry, I don't want to answer that because that seems to me unfair speculation. We will follow the evidence. We'll try and find as much as we can, and we'll follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Wouldn't this situation be ideal for the appointment of a special prosecutor, an independent counsel? in light of the fact that the Attorney General has recused himself and, so far as your answers indicate today, no one has been ruled out publicly in your ongoing investigation. I understand the reasons that you want to avoid ruling out anyone publicly, but for exactly that reason, because of the appearance of a potential conflict of interest, isn't this situation absolutely crying out for a special prosecutor?
That's a judgment for the Deputy Attorney General, the Acting Attorney General on this matter, and not something I should comment on.
You had some experience in this kind of decision. In 2003, you admirably appointed a special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, when the Attorney General, then John Ashcroft, recused himself from involvement in the investigation concerning whether the Bush administration officials illegally disclosed the identity of an undercover CIA official. Are there any differences materially between that situation and this one, so far as the reasons to appoint a special counsel?
Well, I think both situations, as with all investigations that touch on people who've been actors in a political world, involve considerations of actual conflict of interest and appearance of conflict of interest. And I'm not going to talk about the current situation. In that situation, my judgment was that the credibility of the investigation into the leak of the CIA officer's identity would be best served by not having it overseen by myself, because I was a political appointee, and appointing someone and giving him the authority to run it separate from the political leadership of the Department of Justice. That was my judgment in that circumstance. I don't know what judgment the Acting Attorney General will make. I'm sure he'll consider many of the same things.
Has he asked for your advice?
I'm not going to say, Senator, because I wouldn't. When I was DAG, I didn't want people talking about their conversations with me, so I'll do the same for him.
So far as the investigation, the ongoing investigation into Trump associates and their potential collusion with the Russian meddling in our election, will you be providing any updates to the American people?
Certainly not before the matter is concluded, and then depending upon how the matter is concluded, I mean, some matters are concluded with criminal charges, and then there's a public accounting and a charging document. Other matters, as was the case with the email investigation, end with no charges, but some statement of some sort. Others end with no statement. I don't know yet. And obviously, I'd want to do that in close coordination with the department.
Will you make recommendations to, presumably it would be the Deputy Attorney General or the Special Prosecutor, if one is appointed, as to whether criminal charges should be brought?
I don't know in this case in particular, but in general, we almost always do, especially the highest profile matters.
But you cannot yourself pursue criminal charges, correct?
Correct.
I think that's important for the American people to understand, because it bears on the question of whether a special prosecutor ought to be appointed. The FBI may inspire great credibility and trust, but the FBI cannot bring charges. Neither can the intelligence committees do so, nor can an independent commission. Only the Deputy Attorney General or a special prosecutor designated by him, correct?
Correct.
Let me close, because I am running out of time. Have you been questioned at all by the Inspector General in connection with the inquiry that I understand is ongoing into a number of the topics that we've been discussing here?
Yes, I've been interviewed. The Inspector General is inspecting me and looking at my conduct in the course of the email investigation, which I know this sounds like a crazy thing to say. I want that inspection, because I want my story told, because some of it's classified, but also if I did something wrong, I want to hear that. I don't think I did, but yeah, I've been interviewed, and I'm sure I'll be interviewed again.
Do you have any regrets, or are there any things you would do differently in connection with either the comments you made at the time you closed the investigation, or when you then indicated to Congress that you were, in effect, reopening it?
Yeah. The honest answer is no. I've asked myself that a million times because, Lordy, has this been painful? The only thing I regret is that maybe answering the phone when they called to recruit me to be FBI director when I was living happily in Connecticut. And
we would welcome you back to Connecticut.
Yeah, but I can't. And I've gotten all kinds of rocks thrown at me, and this has been really hard. But I think I've done the right thing at each turn. I'm not on anybody's side. So hard for people to see that. But I've asked that a million times. Should you have done this? Should you have done that? And the honest answer, I don't mean to say arrogant, is I wouldn't have done it any differently. Somehow I'd have prayed it away, wished that I was on the shores of the Connecticut Sound. But failing that, I don't have any regrets.
I want to ask one last question unrelated to this topic on the issue of gun violence. Would you agree that universal background checks would help with law enforcement and prevention of gun violence?
The more able we are to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and spouse abusers and all the better. So the more information we have, the better for a law enforcement perspective.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.